Tonight we're going to talk about Chapter 3. We're going to cover Server Manager Command. We're going to talk about how to install and remove roles, configure server hardware, configure operating systems, how to configure and go through navigate the registries, how to do the SCW, or the Security Configuration Wizard, which is pretty easy, and how to install and use PowerShell, which the more you get into it, the more it gets easier to understand. Server Manager basically puts all your administrative tasks into one locality, one web page, all in one source, one-stop shop kind of thing. Role Summary, it displays all your information, alerts you to all the warnings, all your problems that you may have so that you can fix them as needed. It allows you to get that 30,000 foot view of your system, what's been going on since the last time you checked it. Here's what you're going to get when you boot up. You're going to get this Server Manager, unless you tell it not to. It's going to give you your overview. It'll give you your server manager of your server name. In this case, it's the accounting server. It'll give you your server summary, role summary, feature summary, and resources summary. So you can do all these types of summaries and supports and services. Now your roles will be right here, your features right here, diagnostics, configuration and storage. Y'all remember when you, on your local machine, you can right click, go to manage, and it gives you your devices, configuration, and storage. Guess what? It's right there. These three things right here are what you're going to see from a manage page on a computer management console, or a computer management snap-in. Does that make sense now? So you kind of see what they did. Server management, all it is it's just a snap-in, just a bigger snap-in. All right, I'm not going to let you. We'll go over this a little bit later. You'll go and play around with it when we start adding roles and features on Thursday. Two common roles. You're going to have file and print services, usually on your Active Directory system. Why? Because that's going to be where your DFS is, your distributed file system. Or, I'm sorry, your file services role, you're going to share everything through DFS, which is your distributed file system. It makes securing and sharing of information much easier. All right. Print services, basically it's going to be a print server that allows you to spool all printing all print commands into one area and send out to the different printers instead of each computer doing it itself and flooding your network with commands. Does it make sense? Instead of filling up your printer with all these requests, it goes to the server. The server then sends it accordingly. It just helps buffer it out a little bit. Now, it says it takes about 20 minutes to do file and print services. Yeah, it's fine. It takes about more like 10 minutes on VM. After that, then what we're going to do is we're going to do it via command line utility. We're going to teach you Server Manager command. This is how you can see what services are installed, what roles are installed, what features are installed, whether you want to install them or you want to remove them. You can do it from Server Manager command. Okay. Server Manager command is just the command line version of the server management snap-in. Make sense? Management activities. If you want to, you can use the what if option just to see what is there. Okay, if you don't do the what if option, it's going to do what you tell it to do. So what if I install a specific role? It'll actually tell me what would need to be done before I install it. Restart the computer after installing, removing role of feature. I mean, it gives you all this information. So just so that you know what to expect. Here are the options that you'll need to know, because you're going to need to know these on Thursday. you're going to need to know the dash install and the ID of that role. Now, I'll show you how we're going to do this. When we do this dash query, that's going to give you the ID of it. All right. So you do a server management query. How do y'all have your VMs up? Oh, I don't have mine up, or else I'd show you easier. Now let me see if I can bring it up real quick.
You talking about Core?
No. What'd you set the password as, Jerry? All right. All right. Oh, I need to be in PowerShell. All right, if I come down here to PowerShell, I come in here to Server, Manager, Command.
Yeah, can you like turn off the light too? Because then I'd probably be able to see much better. Please. Thank you.
Hang on for just a second. Let me see if I can't get this bigger for y'all.
Control enter.
Yeah, I'm going to make this a little bit bigger though. So 780 is the right, or 768 is the right. No, 1280 is right. Okay. Now, edit, properties, font. Is that a little better?
Thanks.
Nice.
Okay. Now, I just want to do one thing real quick. Server manager command dash query. You saw how it went through all this, right? Right now we don't have anything installed on here. You can tell that by looking at everything is white, right? So let me minimize this just for now. Now I'm going to go over here just to do simplest, and I'm going to come up here to roles like it was telling us to do, and we're going to go in. I'm going to skip this page by default because it always does that. File services and print services. Yeah, that's fine. We want DFS. I could care less about the rest of them right now. Fine, fine. And right now I'm just went through the defaults, okay? I'm not really caring about what's going on. I just wanted to show you what's going to happen. That's how you go through and add a role in there just by clicking add roles, and you just go through the wizard. It's pretty simple, right? Well, let's just say if I'm in the server core and I don't know what I've got. Uh-oh, now I've got some stuff that's in green. That told me what was installed. So as I scroll back up here, it tells me the remote server administration, RSAT. You see these things right here that are inside these brackets? And it was saying you need to know what the ID is. That's what the ID is. So long as you do server manager command dash query or slash query, you can come up here and you can always get the ID. You would just type it in without the brackets around it. But everything that's in green is what is installed. Now everything down here is below the features area is all the features that are installed, and these are the ones that are the roles that are installed only on this server. Pretty nice, neat way of doing that, right? Just kind of gives you an idea of what you need to install. So, just for fun, let's say I want to install ADDS, right? I want to install Active Directory Domains and Services. So AD-domain-services, right? Right? So I'm going to come down here. I'm going to type in server manager command install what if AD domain services, right? Is that all it was? I bet I know what I did. Okay, that's what it is. No, it's going to be install AD domain services all sub features dash what if. Oh, okay, thanks. Okay, let's take off all sub features. Okay. In order, I'm running it in what if. To install it, I would need to have Active Directory Domain Controller and a .NET framework of 3.5.1. Does tell me what I have to be predecessor to ADDS to be installed. Do what?
It's kind of handy, no one guessing. I don't think it was that one.
Exactly. Sometimes I have to remember exactly what the code is, but or the command is, but that's how you can deal with PowerShell. So let me get out of this and anyway, like I said, you can come back up here and you can do restart. You can do all sub features. It can only be used with the install option, obviously. And I can put different settings. That's a pretty neat feature, isn't it? Okay, there are different types of server roles that you're going to have. You can have an application server that are going to deal with your back-end applications. You can have a DHCP server. Usually you'll see a DHCP server on your directory server because you're going to be having your DNS to anywhere you have your directory servers you can have DNS on. So because it's got to translate the domain name into your IP address anyway. So that's why you want to have DHCP on that server. NAP or your will be on your network policy and access services, print services, telnet services. IIS you're going to usually have on your application services or application server, and terminal server will also be on your application, or it could be on a remote access server. And your print service, I'll always have it on a directory server for permissions. All right, hardware. Remember, we just went over how to install in query roles, so we just did that exercise for you. But you're going to get to go play around with it a little bit on Thursday. What all can be on hardware? Basically the same thing can be on your CPU, right? Or on your system units. Disk drives, disk controllers, network adapters, hardware, or keyboards, mice, monitors. We have what we call plug and play. Y'all remember that, right? Who's the most famous person talking about plug and play? Anyone know? Bill Gates with Windows 95 says, we can start doing plug and play. I plug in this USB and pull it out. Well, I plugged in the USB and it crashed. Blue screen of death. He goes, well, I guess someone's getting fired today. So that kind of gives you the idea of plug and play. That's when it first started. It wasn't very good at that point. But now you have hot swappable drives. Now you have hot swappable RAM, which we talked about a week and a half ago, which I would never do. Hot swappable CPUs I would never do. Hot swappable drives is probably the only thing that I would change when the power was on. Do what?
Swapping drives isn't very hard.
No, you're not touching anything on the board.
Exactly.
The Add Hardware Wizard is very easy. You know, when you plug in a drive now, you don't even notice it very much. But if you plug in one of your USB flash drives, it pops up and gives you a little spinning icon saying, hey, we got something going on here. It started from the control panel, Windows 2008. There are two different views that also started in Windows Vista. You have a classic view, and then you have a home view. The home view is basically a categorical view. The classic view, you get everything, right? In this one, here's your classic view, where you have everything listed. You'd have your hardware wizard, a device manager. Y'all are familiar with the device manager. You've all had microcomputer application or hardware, right? Basically, it allows you to update the device drivers, know what's working, what's not, and how to fix the computers. Resolving resource conflicts, we're not going to do that because I'm not going to put any resource conflicts on your drives, but you can go in there and look at your device manager on Thursday just to see if there's any drivers that may be missing. Driver signing, remember we talked a little bit about this last week. If it has that funky little logo, it just means Microsoft approved that driver. That's all it means. Um, System device drivers that are unsigned cannot be loaded in 64-bit versions of Windows 2008. That is incorrect. You can still load them. I've done it before. Done it with printers quite a bit. So you can just negate this. They just don't want you to believe that you can do it. They want you to have what Microsoft wants you to have. Okay. Now you can use the system file checker just to make sure that the integrity's there. It'll show you, hey, this device driver is not signed, and it'll delete it and make you have to find one that's signed. And now that 2008's been out there for years, you probably will find a signed driver for it. You can run the SCW, or let's see which one. This is. You can run the SCW to scan all the system files for integrity. You can replace files as needed. You can do it from the command prompt window if you want. That's up to you. You will not do this because it takes a long time to run, 10 to 30 minutes just to run the test. You don't have that much time. You can do it on your own outside of class if you want. Signature verify is to verify the system and all critical files have not been changed or manipulated in any way. It will scan them, but will not overwrite any inappropriate files. And basically all it does is write everything, all the log file to a text file for you to read. All right. After the operating system has been installed, it can be configured to meet baseline performance. Let's see here. Data execution prevention. We can use data execution prevention to say, I'm going to determine how much resources am I going to apply to what type of processes. Am I going to apply 80% of my processes to go to web resources? No. I want 80% of mine to go to actual calculations, right? 20% to go to my network traffic. What's the difference between virtual memory and paging files? Well, virtual memory is your use of your hard drive to increase your random access memory, okay? Virtual memory is used through a technique we call page file or paging. All it is it writes a file to your hard drive, it stores it as memory, right? And that can be looked up for any particular area. So that's why you can say I want 1 gig, 2 gig, 4 gig, 16 gig of memory off my hard drive to be page files. So it acts as RAM. But remember, the more that you say that you're writing page files, the less performance you're going to have on your hard drive. Because it's got to be writing with that too. So you try to stay away from page files as much as possible, but you still need to have some. You don't want to put page files on a boot partition. You want to keep them on a separate partition. So I recommend creating a page file partition, like 2 or 3 gig, and just say, okay, here's where you're going to go. You can put page files on each disk if you want. You just want to keep them separate. And don't place it on a RAID, especially a stripe set, because it just screws everything up. Page 5, you can create that in 5 minutes going through the little set there. Direct memory access for hard disks. Basically, you're going to be able to do your program input outputs. You're going to tell how much RAM is going to be available for the processing of data in and out. How much disk time is it going to use. And then direct memory access. What that does is it says you're not going to have to go through the CPU to access my RAM. You can go directly to the RAM. You do not pass go directly to jail kind of thing. Do not collect your $200. I got some smiles that people understood the Monopoly analogy.
always sucked at Monopoly.
I still do. Environment variables. Used to tell the operating system where to find certain programs. That's all it is. Just say, hey, I'm over here, Jeremiah's over here, Jordan's over here, Cole's over here, blah, 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 blah. That's the system. User can be defined by the individual user. Like Jordan may have his recycle bin in the top right corner where mine may be in the top left corner on my screen. We both have a recycle bin, but they're in two different environments, two different locations. Does that make sense? That's the per user versus a system. That's why when we start getting into GPOs, we have user configurations and system configurations. Because when you look at the system, how do you want that system to conform? Or do you want to apply it to the user? And we'll be thinking of it in those terms. All right. Configuring startup and recovery. Configure recovery, please. And make sure you recover it in multiple locations, not just one. It's not on the same system that you're backing up like I did. Brittany, quit laughing.
So you're preaching, but hopefully you.
I've already fixed it. I remediated it. I have it in 3 different locations now. I have SkyDrive, Google Drive, and then one at my home. So it's backed up multiple times.
It's good now that you're practicing what you.
Well, I took over when it wasn't set up correctly, so that's why all
It
this.
wasn't your fault, is what you're saying.
Not always. I had not gotten to it yet, so yes, it was partly my fault. Because when I take over something, everything from that point on in my book is my fault.
Right, but Rome wasn't built in a day though either.
Still, when I take it over, if something goes wrong, who's going to be blamed? If you're the new CEO of the company, who gets fired when it tanks? Okay. Other than
You should have at least a
the only
Oh,
CEO that doesn't ever get fired for what happened with the predecessor is the President of the United States. Because they blame the previous one for the first 4 years, and they get reelected, and then they can't blame themselves for the previous 4. So they blame who's going to be coming for what's going on now. They have to blame someone else. It's never their fault. Partly it's not their fault because they can't do everything. But I'm not getting into politics. In the event of system failure, you configure different options. You can write into system log. You can whether to start automatically after the system failure, or you can say how it debugs or things of that nature. I'm not going to worry about the startup and recovery part as much. Configuring power options. Skip that. Installing protocols, because how many of you are going to put a Windows 2008 server on a laptop?
Actually, I have an old laptop I was going to put one on. But
Jerry might, just for the fun of it. Okay, virtual network switch protocol. All this is going to do is allow you to do Hyper-V on a laptop. Okay, that's basically what it's going to do. Reliable multicast protocols. Basically, all you do is you go into network adapters and you can change your protocols and add protocols. The registry, this is a very complex area. How many of y'all have ever messed with registries?
Long time ago.
You screw one thing up in there, you're in trouble.
yeah, and then you normally don't know what you screwed up, and format sees all backslash doesn't reinstall.
That's why you do it on virtual machines with snapshots. So you can revert that snapshot.
So I'm guessing that's the best way to learn is with obviously virtual machines. But then how did those learn before virtual machines?
Trial and error.
Screwed up a lot of stuff.
And a lot of time, I guess.
I
One of the late
formatted
nights with
hard
the
drives
honest.
into oblivion.
Pass on the words of wisdom of what not to do.
Data contained in the registry will tell you the last current and the last known setup known to boot the computer. Also what's currently in use. licensing information, server manager, and perimeter control panel parameters.
Can I stop yawning?
You can either go with regedit 32 or regedit. Either way, I just do regedit. I don't do the 32. But
How often do you have to play in the registry?
I play in it all the time. Just because I like to screw around.
So I'm saying, how often have you killed it?
I've never killed one yet. I just go and look. I don't go and delete things. The only time I've ever really gone into screw around was I deleted the OOBE on Windows XP when I was doing virtual license, when I was doing enterprise licensing, and we had to put our enterprise license in instead of the individual license because we got a bunch of OEM computers in. So I had to kill their license out and put ours in. So I had to go in and take out their key and then
Apparently,
redo OOBEs.
OOBE is out of body experience, Isabel.
Yes. It's Microsoft Out of Body Experience. That's exactly what it is. Don't ask me why they named that.
That is crazy.
Precautions with working with registry. You want to make sure you only have certain people that mess with your registry. Only make changes to the registry if at all possible is the last resort. Regularly back up the registry as part of your backup and never copy the registry from one Windows-based system over to the next one. Why?
Almost no computer is exactly the same as the other.
If you even if you have the multiple, if you have the exact same hardware from one to the second box in this room, when you copy it from one to the other, you've copied the license key, you've copied the computer name. Well, now I got two computer names with the two same IP addresses on the network. What's going to happen? Neither one will work. That's why you don't do it. The registry is a hierarchical in structure. You have the root, and then you have your keys, and then you have your subkeys. Registry key is basically a division of information within the registry. Then you have your subkeys, and then you have your entries off your subkeys. So you have your registry, you have your keys, you have your entries. Or your keys, subkeys, and then entries. H key local machine. This is what is basically to your system unit itself. This is going to be your IRQs. This is going to be your roots. This is going to be your BIOS system setups. These are going to be your hardware type stuff. Okay. Here's where all your device information is set up. Your components, all that information specific to your machine. Your current user, that is their desktop, that is their profile information. Does that make sense? So if you log in as administrator, am I going to see the same thing as if I logged in as Jordan? No, not under here I won't. I will if I look under here where all the rest of the key for him is, because all your keys are stored under here. If you've logged in and Jordan's logged in, both of the keys are stored here. This is only the one that's live, logged in currently. Did y'all know that?
Should. I mean, it's pretty.
HKey user's root key. All that does is say who has logged on to the computer. That's all it is. Classes. This is going to be all your... How many of y'all have had programming languages? Any like Java, C++, C? You've heard of the term library, right? DLLs, things of that nature. That's where all these are. Okay, they're in the root classes. These are all your file extensions, your batch, your execs, your audio files, your text files. Any type of extension, this is where it learns how to encode those and read them. Make sense? So you don't want to lose this. And then current configuration is how the system is set up currently. Between the local user and the local machine. The security configuration wizard, the SCW. All it does is basically it gives you a wizard, goes through and says, okay, here's how do you want to set up your security in your computer. Okay. You can disable any unnecessary services and software. Is that a good thing? It's a very good thing, especially if you are trying to. How many of y'all have had SSAC? Only one. Okay. How many of y'all planning on taking that in the fall? Secure Systems Administration and Certification. Accreditation and Certification.
It's the only one I need to.
Well, you'll have it with me. And you're going to be having to hack other systems.
It's fun.
This would be very helpful because you're going to have to harden your system to prevent other teams from attacking your system. Close network communication ports and all other communication resources that aren't in use. Like I've told many classes before, when you have a server, a web server, you only want web ports running. You do not want any other type of ports running on that server. You want to minimize your footprint. Configure firewall rules to allow only access to this server dealing with the ports that would deal with that server only. Does that make sense? The SCW gives you 3 different ways, or 3 different components. It has the GUI wizard, so you can go through it. It has a database on the back end, and then it has the command line, which you can do SCW command if you want to do it from the command line. Go through the wizard, it's a lot easier. Here's an example of the wizard. It's going to say create a new security policy, and you can keep on going through. You can analyze, configure, register, rollback, transform, or view your SCD, depending on what you're going to do. This one you will do in class. This is what I want y'all to do on Thursday. You can do SCW. I just want you to view through the command line here, so it won't take you as long to view it. You can go through the wizard, create it, but then you're going to view it through the command line. Make sense? Windows PowerShell, basically it's a better command line utility. It gives you a lot more commands that you can use interactively with the Windows operating system. You manage files and folders, manage network tasks, fix storage, computers, manage terminal services. Any type of role or feature or service you can use and fix. Any questions? Y'all cool? Alrighty. Y'all have a wonderful evening then.